Good morning, and thank you everyone for coming to the 2020 Intern Luncheon here at LFOLA Farm Hay Barn. This year has been a different year than many of the years in past, as you can imagine. However, with that said, I think it's been a great year. It has started off a little bit questionable, even if we were going to have an internship, but we stayed the course, and Sarah and Kevin did a great job interviewing the 7 to 10 interns that we had. And I say 7 to 10 interns because there was a chance that we weren't going to have the program. But because of our CEO, John Santel, our chair, Fred Wacker, and our chair of land management, they had the confidence in our staff and also in the organization that we could provide a safe and healthy internship for you guys, the interns, as well as our staff. And so while other internships were not happening, I'm proud to say that ours went forward, to the point that we actually were able to accept 3 more interns from outside the program that we weren't anticipating because their internships fell apart. And so at the end of the day, things were different. We were checking temperatures in the morning, we were filling out forms, our field trips changed, but we were able to physical distance, we were able to get a lot of work done, and I think we had some fantastic goals that we were able to reach. Not only personal goals for our interns, our staff, but as well as the organization. And so a lot of those will be shared with you today. I also can't help but thank the number of sponsors that we have for this program. They don't only give their time, but they give their money as well. And some of those sponsors are Mr. and Mrs. Stephen Barnhart, Mr. and Mrs. Michael Garner, Mr. and Mrs. Howard Simpson, Mrs. Marion Searle, as well as the Harold and Adeline Morris Foundation, the Carl Knautz Foundation, and the Deer Path Garden Club. So for all those people, including Jim and Ellen Sterling, who made a considerable contribution to our internship program, I thank you. Without those kind of donations, this program couldn't go. And as we always like to say, you know, this is the best investment that we can make in our conservation leaders. And so hopefully you guys will take what you've learned, and if it doesn't become a job, it becomes a lifestyle. We're really excited that you participated with us this year. And over the years, we've had a lot of our interns reach back out and have kept friends with them throughout the country, and we look forward to doing the same with you. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt, who is going to kick off the program, and we will finish at the end with any questions if anyone has any questions. So thank you.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming out. We've worked the entire summer on these projects, so we're really excited for you guys to see them all. We're going to start off with our group project, which is a video that we've made with all the clips and pictures from the entire summer that everyone's collected. Kaylee put it all together. She did a really great job, so I'm super excited for you guys to see this.
No, I don't know. My name is Brennan.
I'm Jessica.
My name is Matt Anderson.
Hi, I'm Kaylee.
My name is Jonathan.
I'm Leonard.
Hi, I'm Jenny.
I'm Jake.
I'm Amir, and this is the Lake Forest Open Lands Internship.
I laughed at all his words. I thought he was a bitter man. He spoke of women's ways. They trap you and they use you before you even know. For love is blind and you're far too kind. Don't ever let it show. I wish that I knew what I know now. But when I was young.
Is all the beach days, all the education days that were beach days also.
Every day, because every day is unique.
Every blackberry bush we found, we would stop and eat all of the ripe blackberries off of the tree.
And we did a little push-up competition, and then we did a little 100-yard dash, and I absolutely just smacked him in both of them. And I'm so excited for him to watch this because he knows that I won both, and he'll start arguing if I say that I did, but I know that I did.
Me and Jake had a little competition. He was the better man, and I smoked him in the
The push-up, the running, and the spelling bee. Couldn't keep up.
When you wanna live, you get a cheek, makes you wonder where you are. If you want some more, then she's fast asleep. She's just twinkling with the stars. For a young grandson, there's nothing I can say. You have to learn just like me, and that's the hardest way. Ooh la la.
Yeah, I'll just do it.
Let's check out what we got here today. Another beautiful, or just beautiful snake. You can see its scales again.
Favorite Kevin story is whenever he texts about his two cats, Miracle and Mustafa. He just loves his cats. Meow, meow.
And then finally, comes walking, lumbering down the driveway, back home. I don't know, it's like what, who knows with cats? They get trapped in a garage or a shed or...
Favorite species had to be the least weasel.
Quercus alba, white oak.
Baby tree frogs that you see jumping across the road sometimes.
The red-winged blackbird.
Blue jay.
Valerian. Yeah, praying mantis.
Cold, cold water, bring me round.
that I hope that I can be friends with forever once this program ends.
So if you couldn't tell, we didn't have any fun this summer. We just worked the entire time and never did anything fun. So huge shout out to Kaylee for putting that all together. All right, so I'll get started now with my personal presentation. Mine is on the indigenous peoples of Lake County. So about me, my name's Matt. I'm a senior at the University of Illinois, majoring in natural resources and environmental science. And my favorite condiment is Grey Poupon, because I'm bougie. That's not a crazy thing, that's a theme here. So my goal, as I said, record the history of indigenous Americans in Lake County. So why I chose this, I feel like we forget a lot of the history of the people that came before us. You take a history class and it starts in 1776, and we kind of forget that there's these people that lived here before us and lived off this land. And I think that a knowledge of these past cultures can help inform our current ones. The way what they value and what they believe in can kind of shape what we believe in. And I also think that gives us a greater respect for these people. So regarding the resources I used, there's not a lot of written evidence. They didn't have a lot of forms of writing. And there's also very little third-party observations. In Europe, you know, the Romans could write about the Gauls or something like that. Before the Europeans came, there was really nobody to kind of do a observation like that. But my goal is just kind of a rough overview of all these people that lived here. I don't have the time to get too in depth on anybody, so I'm just trying to give people the ideas. And a quick note on names, a lot have been lost to history, and the common names that many of you probably know, Iroquois, Potawatomi, are not autonyms, which is the name that the people called themselves, but rather the names that Europeans gave to them. So I try and use all the autonyms, but I'll also put the common names in parentheses. Okay, so getting started. When the glaciers retreated, 10,000 BCE, nomadic, quote-unquote, nameless people followed the herds of elk north and settled in Lake County along the Des Plaines River in Lake Michigan. They lived a short, really difficult life. Lifespan was about 25 to 30 years. And we know a lot about these people because in 1991, with the construction of Wallace Road, they kind of uncovered a bunch of archaeological evidence, which you can see in this bottom picture here. So then around 200 BCE was the formation of the Hopewell culture. They weren't really a single tribe, but rather a group of populations connected by a trade exchange called the Hopewell Exchange. It ranged all the way from Florida to Lake Ontario. And they constructed kind of the first, what we know as Indian burial mounds. There's certain areas in Illinois where you can see these large earthen mounds like in the top picture, and they were used as burial mounds for the chiefs of the tribes. So then, at the same time was the formation of the Niswi-Mishikodwin, who are also known as the Council of Three Fires. And one of the reasons I think they're really important is they were kind of the last group in this area to be forced out by the federal government. So they were one big group in upstate New York, and their origin story, the Anishinaabe, was that an apparition appeared and warned them of pale-faced invaders, and so they began moving westward for about a couple hundred years, and it took them all the way until Lake Superior before they split into three different groups: the Ojibwe, the Chippewas, the Odawas, the Ottawas, and the Anishinaabe, the Potawatomi. So after that was the Mississippian culture. They had no written language, so we don't actually know what their real name is, but they lived along the Mississippi River for the most part, so we call them the Mississippians. They founded really large urban settlements, which is kind of unknown, I think, for me at least. And there are about 2,000 sites across Illinois where they had cities. So one of the things I want to point out about the Mississippian culture is the city of Cahokia. It's in St. Clair County in southern Illinois near St. Louis. 6 square miles, it's 190 earthen mounds, and it was massive at the time. Around 1200 CE, it was 50,000 people, which was bigger than London was at that time. And the base of the main temple, called Monk's Mound, was larger than the pyramids of Giza. So kind of really impressive architecture and city building here that we don't really hear about. European explorers arrived and kind of said, oh, the Vikings made this, the Toltecs made this. They didn't know that these were actually the natives that made this. So fast forwarding to 1600 CE is the Inyoka, or the Illinois tribe. They lived throughout Illinois. Inyoka kind of translates roughly to he or she speaks normally. They were united by a common language. They spoke different dialects, but they were all able to communicate with each other. That's why they're known under one tribe. It was around 80,000 people, and they lived in longhouses and wigwams. They cultivated crops, and they were also fashion entrepreneurs. They did a lot of stuff with their hair and red paint and tattoos, which I kind of tried to highlight here, the picture. So 1600 brought the arrival of the Europeans to, at first, the East Coast, and then they moved inward into Lake County in Illinois. The tribes had already been decimated by diseases like smallpox that they had brought with them, and the decline of the beaver population for trade. And so the European powers kind of used them in their wars to fight against each other, and it really decimated the native populations. And so on the back of that, the Inyoka, kind of an example here, there were once 13 tribes, 80,000 people. After these decades of war, we're now 5 tribes and just several hundred people. In the early 1800s, the Anishinaabe signed a treaty with the government to cede what is now Lake County to the government, and it was $12,000 cash, $12,000 good, and 50 barrels of salt. That's what the cost of Lake County was. If you add it up right now, it's probably several billion, so just kind of something to think about. It didn't stop there. 1830, Andrew Jackson signs the Indian Removal Act, which justifies these centuries of genocide and puts in place continued genocide of the native populations. Soon after that, 1833, in Chicago, government and military officials meet with the local natives, including the Niswi-Mishikodwin, and sign the Second Treaty of Chicago, which cedes the area of Wisconsin, Illinois, and Indiana to the federal government and forces the tribes of people there to move west of the Mississippi. This in turn led to what is now known as the Potawatomi Trail of Death. 800 Anishinaabe forcefully removed out of their area in Illinois, and over 150 of them died along the way. And as that was going on, white settlers immediately moved in and founded the towns of Libertyville and Mundelein. So, present day, there's still continued discrimination. The Indian Appropriations Act of 1851 created the reservation system. For many years, the natives were not allowed to leave the reservations without government permission. Native Americans were given citizenship status in 1924, 12,000 years after they first arrived here. And the Indian Bill of Rights in 1968 granted people on reservations the same as the Bill of Rights grants normal citizens, I guess, 177 years after the original Bill of Rights. So as you can see, they're not really treated very fairly. So Native American reservations are some of the poorest areas in the nation. They're fraught with a lot of socioeconomic and environmental issues, overdrawn aquifers, high rates of domestic violence, teen suicide, drug and alcohol addiction. They don't receive a lot of funding from the governments. And the local, state, and federal governments still attempt to oppress these populations, attempts to disenfranchise them, ban religious rituals, and continue to steal their land. One thing I do want to note is the Potawatomi Trails Powwow, which happens every year in Zion. It didn't happen this year, unfortunately, because of the COVID situation. But it's a celebration of indigenous cultures. It includes a lot of different tribes, the Lakota and the Potawatomi included. And there's singing, dancing, music, demonstrations of native practices, really a lot of cool stuff. And I definitely plan on going next year, and I hope that you guys will consider it too. So finally, I'd just like to say that I think it's important to recognize the people that came before us, and that this land was not really ours to begin with. This was taken by the people before us, not always kindly, sometimes forcefully. And I think it's important to remember that and kind of keep their beliefs and their ideals in our mind, especially when we're working out in the preserves and working with nature. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you to the board and to the sponsors for putting on this great internship. And I hope you guys enjoyed.
I'm Jake Daniker, and before I get into my research, I'll say a little bit about myself. So I also go to the University of Illinois, where I am in the Gies College of Business there, studying accounting and analytics. And I will be an upcoming junior there next year. A little more about me, my favorite condiment is ketchup, which is a little bit basic, I know, but I was spending so much time on that question rather than doing my actual project, so I just put down ketchup. And then a couple baby pictures of me right there. A little fun fact about this one before I get into the actual project, that little snippet right on the right side, I was voted one of the cutest babies in Wisconsin, born in February. Thought that that was relatable to this presentation, thought it was important information for you guys, so I'm glad I got to put that out there. Anyways, so like I said, I'm in the business school at Illinois, but I also have a really huge interest in law as well. So I wanted to focus my research for the summer on more of the policy, regulations, law side of environmental protection and safety. So a couple of my project goals were to gain knowledge on the statutes, rules, regulations, and policies implemented by the Illinois state government regarding environmental protection, and then also to familiarize myself with the City of Lake Forest initiatives that promote environmental safety and restoration. So just to start off with the state of Illinois statutes and policies that I researched. So through the summer I researched around 10 different acts or regulations that were passed by the state of Illinois government. But for time's sake, I'm just going to talk about 2 of them that I thought were really important. So the first one that I'm going to talk about was the Environmental Protection Act that was passed in 1970. And the reason I thought that this was so important was because I feel like this was the first big thing that the state of Illinois did to support environmental protection. So what this act did is it created the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, or the Illinois EPA. Which obviously the EPA, basically their main job is to carry out both the federal and state environmental policies or regulations for businesses and residents that live in Illinois. So then the second act that I wanted to talk about was the Electronic Products Recycling and Reuse Act that was passed in 2008, so it was more recently. And the reason I chose this one to talk about was because at that point in time, there's so much more electronics and electronic developers that were popping up, and people didn't really know what to do for discarding unwanted products that they had no use for anymore. So they were throwing them away, and they ended up in landfills, and in some cases, some of those toxins that live inside of those electronic products could leak into the ecosystem. So this act basically required all electronic manufacturers to create some sort of recycling system for their unwanted electronic devices that they had no use for. And then it also made it illegal for Illinois residents to throw away their unwanted electronic products, which helped a lot because none of those toxins snuck into our ecosystem. So then I want to talk about my research into the City of Lake Forest and some of their initiatives, which honestly I was so surprised on how much the City of Lake Forest really does in terms of environmental restoration and protection. So the main initiative that I researched throughout the summer was the Lake Forest Sustainability Plan that was created in July of 2016. And what the City of Lake Forest did was they created basically a task force called the Lake Forest Collaborative for Environmental Leadership to create this sustainability plan and research and survey so that they can create this plan for a safer and better environment in the city. So for those of you who don't know what the Lake Forest Collaborative for Environmental Leadership is, it's basically made up of the City of Lake Forest, the Lake Forest School District, Lake Forest College, and then of course the Lake Forest Open Lands Association. So what they all did is they got together, they researched, and they came up with this really awesome sustainability plan that focused on 5 main topics that are all really important in environmental safety and quality and restoration. So those 5 topics were water usage in the city, the ecosystem vitality, waste management, energy efficiency, and then finally the air quality in the city. Which I wish I could talk about more, but for time's sake, I sadly cannot. But before I thank all the donors and sponsors, I just want to wrap things up with a couple final thoughts for my research this summer. I thought it was so cool to research this. This is something that I'm actually passionate about and I have an interest in. And it got me thinking about the future for Lake Forest open lands and just for ecological restoration in general. So I know that Lake Forest Open Lands gets most of their land donation from private Lake Forest residents. So I thought about how any sort of way to maybe get some lands in all of Illinois, not just Lake Forest, to be donated through big businesses that have so much land and maybe don't need all of it. And this also made me then think about how important the government plays in that role to get companies to be incentivized to do that, because big companies aren't just going to donate land without getting anything in return, which sucks, but that's how it is. So one thing I thought about the main incentive that the government could do would be to allow some sort of substantial tax break for companies that donate some of their land, so those companies could save a lot during their tax season. It was just something that I was thinking about because of this research, which I think is cool and I love doing. So yeah, before I pass it on to the next speaker, a big thank you to all of the donors and sponsors. Like I said, being a business major, I don't really have the opportunity to take a lot of environmental science classes, aka I don't have the opportunity to take any environmental science classes. Which sucks because it's always been a huge passion of mine, so I'm so thankful that this internship got put together by you guys so that I could do something that I actually really love. And then obviously thank you to the Lake Forest Open Lands Board, and then to our direct supervisors, Pete, Heather, Sarah, and Kevin, for all that you guys did for us this summer. I loved working with all of you, so it was an awesome thing to do. So thank you guys. Now I'm going to pass it on to my biggest rival for the summer, Brennan. It wasn't really a rivalry, but
Hey everyone, I'm Brennan. I'm from Geneva, Illinois, and I'm going into my 5th year at Marquette University studying civil engineering with a focus in environmental engineering and a minor in environmental studies. My favorite condiment, as we've seen before, is mayo. It's a lot of controversy amongst all the interns. A lot of the interns do not like it, and others, yeah, just mainly they don't like it. But like, I want to talk like kind of like my career goals. Something about me is like I want to work in environmental restoration, kind of like on a big scale, such as work with like the EPA or the Army Corps of Engineers, doing some of the real heavy, big projects. And then maybe potentially see where things go, look at the DNR, Fish and Wildlife Services, or the Bureau of Land Management. Kind of trying to put all my feelers out and see where things go. And then also water resources would be a cool spot that I would like to go eventually someday, because water's always been an attractant. Like I love being around water. So I just want to talk about my internship goals. This summer I came in with not a lot of experience in ecology or environmental sciences or restoration. So I wanted to keep my goals broad enough that would allow me to like to get a general knowledge. So my first goal was to be able to identify at least 10 invasive plant species and their corresponding methods of control. The second was be able to identify, name, and account at least 10 native wildlife species in the area. And then my third goal was to be able to identify at least 10 medicinal plant species and what kind of medical uses they could have to it. The third one being kind of like a fun one to take the mind off all the strenuous labor on the first goal. But yeah, I'll just go on and then continue, just cover some of the species that I encountered. I did 4 of each of the 3 categories. The first is garlic mustard, which we really hit at the beginning of the year. It's pretty easy to pull, and it's pretty identifiable by its leaf structure with the alternating stems going off of them. Those are pretty easy to pull, and they're native to Europe, Asia, and northwestern Africa. A second one we hit was Dame's Rocket, which was also going on at the same time. It's identifiable usually with the 4 petals in their flower, either white or purple, and that's native to Eurasia. And that pulling is like one of the best methods of control for Dame's Rocket. And then the other 2 species we hit towards the end of the year were white sweet clover, which is kind of one of the pains in the butt, I could say, to pull out, because a lot of times they embed themselves with their deep root structures. It's native to Eurasia, and it's good at just, the method of control for that is just pulling again. And then the Queen Anne's lace, or wild carrot, that one was prevalent. You can see it all along highways all over the place. It's also native to Eurasia, and pulling is one of the best methods for that. And I'll just go to the animals that we were able to encounter. We encountered the least weasel over in Derwin under one of the barks of a tree that was peeling. There was like 3 or 4 of them in there. And this least weasel is apparently really rare for the area. So it was great to actually see some of these rare species out in our preserves. And then the next species is the red-winged blackbird, which a lot of us had rivalries with because they'd always dive bomb us as we're trying to just pull the weeds. Couple battles with them. And then 2 other snakes that we encountered. We encountered DeKay's brown snake up at I think Red Wing Slough on one of our education days. It's one of the cooler looking snakes I've seen. Just right on the path, we were able to get pretty close to it. And then another one I saw was the milk snake. I think it was like the first or second day we were in Derwin under one of the benches in the preserve. And it just was crawling around. Tried to get a picture of it, but I couldn't, so this is just a generic picture from the internet. And then I'll go into the medicinal plants. Cattail was one of them. It's very prevalent. And it actually has a lot of uses, mainly for antiseptic, antibiotic properties, and additionally with working with blood and internal bleeding and hemorrhaging. And then chicory, which is also one of the, I wouldn't say super all over the place, but you get patches here and there, and they're pretty easy to see. And they have been shown to promote the production of bile and release of gallstones and eliminate excessive internal mucus. And then it also has some mild sedative properties as well. And then the last 2, the first one is wild asparagus. It's rumored that if you make a tea out of the root, it could be used to regulate female hormones to treat PMS and increase milk flow in nursing mothers. And then a study that's been ongoing right now that showed that the tea from the asparagus may prevent cognitive impairments such as like Alzheimer's and other diseases like that. And then can also be used as a diuretic to cleanse the kidneys. And then burdock root is another one that's a pretty common species around the preserves, but has been shown to treat inflammatory acne and other skin conditions. And the oil from the seeds have been shown to have anti-aging properties. So if you're ever in the preserve and you see, just grab a little of the seed, a little oil from it, rub it on your skin, and you'll be looking younger. But yeah, I just wanted to thank all the donors and sponsors that allowed me the opportunity to get this knowledge that I wouldn't really have too much in-person knowledge out in the preserves. And I also want to thank Kevin, Pete, Sarah, and Heather for all their help with this summer, teaching me all these new things I've never had to encounter before. But yeah, I'll pass it off to Jen.
Hi everyone, I'm Jenny. I am currently a master's student at DePaul University, and I'll be graduating in December. I am in the environmental science program, and I got my undergrad degree at Knox College in environmental studies. And I'm from Chicago, Illinois. And my favorite condiment is gochujang, which is a Korean hot sauce paste. So if you like spicy, that's the sauce for you. And my goal for the summer was to identify 30 invasive plant species and put them all in a binder. And I got this idea when I took a class and we read this book called The Death and Life of the Great Lakes by Dan Egan. And it talked about how the Asian carps came into our water systems and how they messed things up. And I wanted to see like how the invasive plant species came to North America and changed things up for us. And in my binder, I pressed the invasive plant. I have the comment and scientific name, what family it is in, and what the background, such as where it originated from and why it was brought to North America. And I have descriptions of the stem, the leaves, and the flower. So I will talk about my top 3 favorite invasive plants. And my favorite one is the bitter nightshade. It's from Eurasia, and it was brought over to North America for ornamental design reasons. And you know it's a bitter nightshade when you can look in the picture. There are 5 triangular purple petals, and in the middle is yellow cone. And if we were to consume it, we can get really sick from it. And if your dog consumes it, they can die from it. So get your dogs away from bitter nightshade. They smell bad, but they look really pretty. And the next one is chicory. It's also from Eurasia. And the Europeans, when they came to America, they needed a substitute for coffee. The demand was very high and the supply was very low. So what they did was they brought chicory over, and then they made coffee. And you know it's a chicory when you look at the leaves, it looks like a dandelion. And when it flowers, it has a bright blue flower on the sides. It doesn't bloom on the top. And my last plant is the burdock. It's also from Eurasia, and as Brennan mentioned earlier, it is a medicinal plant, and you can use the roots to make tea. It can cure different types of illnesses. And the leaves are extremely large. If you put your hand on top of it, it'll probably take like 1/4 or 1/5 of it. You probably need like 5 or 6 hands together. And then the head of the flower, it's like a round ball with hooks on the tip. And if you're out in nature and you're not careful, it can get stuck to your clothes, it can stuck to your hair. I've had it stuck in my hair multiple times, and I had to like politely ask some interns to take it off. It can get really, really stuck in there. So I would like to thank you, the donors and sponsors, the land management team, and fellow interns for giving me this opportunity to be here. If I wasn't here, I'd probably be at home playing Candy Crush or something. I don't know what I'll be doing. But yeah, well, yep. And I would like to pass this over to Kaylee.
Hi everyone, I'm Kaylee. I'm going to be a senior at the University of Dayton studying environmental biology. I'm up north from Lake Villa, and I'm also generic like Jake, and my favorite condiment is ketchup. So my goal for this summer was to learn 35 different tree species from the park and even over other areas. I've always been interested in trees and wanting to be able to identify them easily, but I just haven't really had the support or the resources to do it. Before this summer, I had like 2 field guides that I had bought, and I just never opened them because I didn't know how to use them. And so luckily, this summer I was able to complete my goal. I learned all these species here, many maple, oaks, and just a bunch of other fun trees that I really enjoyed being able to learn to identify. I chose to present my topic in a fun way, at least I thought so. I took it to the popular social media app called TikTok, and on this app you can make videos from 15 seconds to a minute long. So for each tree that I learned, I made a whole video on each tree, and this is a little summary video. So for each video, I named the name and the scientific name, as well as getting up close and personal with each tree. I really showed the leaf shape and how you can identify it. I included myself in the videos, and I just tried to show people like how they can easily identify different trees in their own backyard or local parks, as well as showing different facts about the trees, like kind of flowers they produce, fruit, places they're found in. And I was actually really surprised at the response that I got from these videos. My first 3 videos, I got over 400 views just from random people as a startup tree account on the internet. And that was really exciting to me. And then my account was pretty quiet for a while. I got about 15 views, but then this past week it's kind of been blowing up a little bit more, and I think I have 50 followers now as of today. Very exciting. But I really enjoyed making it this way. It helps me learn more because I can look at my videos and see how you learn about these trees. And it was just very fun for me to do. And then my 2 favorite species that I think I encountered during this summer is first the American sweet gum. I saw this one at the Chicago Botanic Gardens, and I just saw it and I was immediately so fascinated by it. I don't really know why. I just really liked the leaf shape and how it's kind of shaped like a star. I spent a while trying to figure out what it was, and I was just very excited about it. And then also the shagbark hickory. I saw that one in Middle Fork, Savannah, and Kevin helped me kind of deduce what it could be instead of just telling me what it was right away, which was very helpful to me. And yeah, I would like to thank the donors and the sponsors that gave me this opportunity this summer, as well as Kevin, Sarah, Peter, and Heather for really teaching me how to identify these trees. And now Leonard.
Hey folks, how are you today? I'm Leonard. I'm a student at the University of Minnesota studying environmental science and horticulture. My favorite condiment is mustard. My goal for this internship was to research 30 different pests and diseases of trees that are present in Illinois, and then treatment options as well. So the first one is probably one that you might have heard of. The emerald ash borer, small metallic green beetles, very small, about the size of a cooked grain of rice. And those will affect any and all species of ash tree. As far as treatment options goes, only the 2 options you have are insecticide applications or removal of the infected trees, though biological controls have also been effective in controlling emerald ash borer. So on there you can see there's sort of like a guide as to what to look for when you're looking at ash trees to see if you can diagnose the emerald ash borer. So you're looking for sprouts from the trunk, D-shaped exit holes, declining or thinning canopy, increased woodpecker activity, as well as galleries under the trunk, which is basically these sort of wandering, meandering paths through the underside of the bark. Then the second one that I'll be going over today is crown gall disease, my personal favorite of all the pests and diseases that I went over. Crown gall disease is also known as Agrobacterium tumefaciens. It causes roundish, rough-surfaced galls at or near the soil line. They're usually cream-colored, will turn black. They start off small and can get pretty large, as you can see there on a tree. They affect a ton of species, going from crops to grapevines to trees and shrubs, as well as weeds. So as far as treatment options goes for this, really all you can do is remove the tissue and hope for the best, really. And really, if it doesn't recover, all you can do is remove the tree to prevent it spreading to other trees. Yeah, so again, thank you to all the sponsors and to my fellow interns, as well as Heather, Kevin, Sarah, and Peter for giving me the opportunity to be here today with you guys. Thank you.
I'm Amir. I just graduated from high school. I'm going to Colorado College this fall. I was with CCL for over 2 years. And before this internship, I was working with the college interns from the last 2 years. So I'm the youngest one in the group. You can tell my favorite condiment is also mayo, so it's very unpopular. And among the interns, in the video, I was eating a scoopful, like the spoonful of mayo for $2. It was frozen. Anyways, but my goal was to find 10 unique insects, so not like the common flies or like, you know, the common insects, and like learn about them and report back to you guys. My first insect that I found was the praying mantis. This one in particular is native to Illinois. It's the Carolina mantis. The green one is the female. The brown one is the male. These were really hard to catch, as like the first few I found like kept escaping me. So you catch them by slowly like surround them and lift them up high in the air so they don't jump. I think they're afraid of falling from the heights. Unless there's like a plant nearby, they will immediately jump to the plant. But the front legs are adapted for grasping prey, and they're always like stooping down. That's why they're called praying mantis. And they have their head can be able to turn around so they can look behind them. Yeah, they're over 2 inches. Yeah. Another cool insect I found is the walking stick. Yeah, they move very slow. I didn't actually find this, like one of the interns found this and pulled me over. They can actually regrow their limbs, which the second one I found was while hedging was one of his legs were cut off. Sorry about that. The females drop their eggs from in the trees, and then the way their life cycle is the ants pick up the eggs back to their nest, and then because the ants eat a membrane off their eggs, so their eggs are able to survive from parasites because the ants are like protect them in their burrows. I didn't actually find this one. Matt found this one. I thought it looked like poop for a second, but it had a head of like a dinosaur. Like it looked like it came from prehistoric times, but we did some. I forgot what the app was called, but it identified the caterpillar for us. It's called the morning glory prominent. Yeah, I just thought it was pretty cool. But the adults look like these. They're not really interesting, but the caterpillars are more interesting. The larvae can be found from May to October, so Matt found that during that time. The species overwinters in the pupal stage. Cicada, even though it's really common, this one in particular that we found, it comes up every 17 years. So, and this one is the periodical cicada. This one is the annual cicada, which like we didn't find. We didn't find this year. This one is from the website. But yeah, they have differences in color. The northern half, I believe, so this one comes from the 17 years every 17 years. Yep. Well, the annual ones are called Dog Day. Yep. So, we were digging up a trench and we found a lot of the nymph stage cicadas. So, and there's other insects. There's the inchworm that just fell on my head a couple times. There's the monarch on the milkweed. There's the caterpillar, monarch caterpillar, and there's the Japanese beetle. They are invasive. Yep. Some more insects. Yeah, there's a daddy longleg. These caterpillars are moth caterpillars. That's a huge grasshopper. I don't know what that is, but it has the head of a fly, but like a body of a cicada. I think that was the last slide. But thank you to the sponsors and donors and CCL for ultimately led to this opportunity by being in the internship for 2 years. And yeah.
Greetings, everyone. Good morning.
My name is Jonathan Rogan, and today I'm going to be giving you a presentation about reimagining the harvest. So first, a little bit about who I am. So I'm a student at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, class of 2021. I'm a student in their landscape architecture program. Hometown is Libertyville, Illinois. And my favorite condiment is Thousand Island dressing. Moving on. So imagine the harvest as it is today, typically. So large areas of agricultural land are, processed, so where you can grow crops and things like that. Then when they grow, large machines come by, pick them up, they're processed, transported to a store, where then either commercially or in a retail sense, they make it to your table. So a lot of energy is used in the process, and this project seeks to narrow the gap or even eliminate the gap completely between the field and then what you're consuming. So what does it mean to reimagine the harvest? Let me explain. So there are multiple ways to think about it. One of them is through the practice of using a seed bomb. And what a seed bomb is a 5-to-1 ratio of clay soil, compost, and seeds, and then water is used to bind it all together. So let's say you don't have the opportunity to go prep a whole field. You can just take one of these seed bombs, throw it into an empty lot or an empty field, and it'll start to sprout things. So this technique was kind of refined and popularized by a Japanese farmer named Masanobu Fukuoka, and has since gained a lot of traction. So a second way to think about this is through the practices of guerrilla gardening and guerrilla grafting. So guerrilla gardening is used to typically green up urban areas. So say you have an alley that you want to make either more welcoming to the community or just better for the environment. People bring in their own plants on their own time and just turn these rundown areas of cities or towns into places that look nice and are green. So it's typically seen as like a vigilante type effort. And second, guerrilla grafting works with plants in the same family. For example, the Rosaceae family has rose bushes and also apples. So you could take a branch from an apple tree, graft it onto a rose bush, and if it's successful, then that rose bush will have apples going from that one branch. But still, it's how you can get food on a plant that doesn't typically grow food. So, while plants are used widely for food, there's also lots of other reasons to cultivate different plants. And here's a small handful of them. So in the upper left, we have the garden valerian, scientific name Valeriana officinalis. And once it's grown, you can take the root, either pulverize it or just dry it out, steep it into tea, and then that tea is used for like a sedative type effect. It's very relaxing. On the bottom left, that is wild quinine, which its scientific name is Parthenium integrifolium. And it's used to treat fever, cough, and sore throat. And there's some debate about whether it can help COVID-19, but that's beside the point. So in the upper right is motherwort, which has the scientific name Leonurus cardiaca, and you can chew it for pain relief. And finally, in the bottom right corner is wild lettuce, Lactusa virosa, scientific name, and it has opiate-like pain management effects, but without the actual addictive properties of opium. So that takes a whole different thing out of it. So finally, I'd like to take this moment to thank the sponsors and the donors of Lake Forest Open Lands, as well as Kevin, Sarah, Heather, and Pete for making this an awesome summer and helping everyone learn a lot. That's it.
Hi everyone. everyone. I'm Jessica. Sweet. I am a recent college graduate from Whitman College. I got my degree in environmental studies and sociology. I'm from the Lake County area, grew up in Waukegan, and now live in Beach Park. And my favorite condiment is Tapatio hot sauce. So my goal for the summer was to try and learn about medicinals of the Lake Forest open lands preserves, and then create a zine that could be either put online or be made into a physical copy as sort of an introductory beginner level to the medicinals of the area. The reason that I chose to make a zine is and focus on medicinals specifically is because I very much value the connection between people and the land, and I find that there are a multitude of different ways in terms of addressing your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health with the land. Medicinals are a wonderful way to not only analyze your inner landscape and what is going on with yourself, but also to analyze and learn about your outer landscape and how those two things can work together. So in the zine, I included 10 species. I only included 10 because, again, I wanted it to be somewhat of a beginner's guide type of deal. And I chose my 10 favorite ones and also just tried to make it kind of different types of medicinals. So there are medicinals like St. John's wort that you can make into a tea, and that can be used as an antidepressant or anti-anxiety. You can also, I included wild quinine, valerian, spiderwort. Valerian, as Jonathan was talking about, works as a sleep aid. And a bunch of these could be made into teas or poultices poultices that worked as for bug bites or wounds or to stop bleeding. In the zine, there is a picture, an illustration of the plant, the common name, the scientific name, whether it's a biannual, a perennial, an annual, where it is native to or if it is non-native. And then I also included where it typically grows, so on roadsides and fields and pastures and whatnot. And then obviously I wrote the multitude of different uses for each of them. Yeah, I had a lot of fun learning about the medicinals. I had a lot more fun trying a lot of the medicinals. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. I'm allergic to spiderwort apparently, but I love valerian and jewelweed and St. John's wort and whatnot. Queen Anne's lace and Queen of the Prairie I included. And yeah, I would like to thank Sarah, Kevin, Heather, and Pete, obviously, for teaching me about the medicinals and being so passionate and willing to let me, at the end of the day, collect all of anything that we had been weeding so I could take home and dry it and make things with it. And also thank you to the Lake Forest Upland Lands donors and sponsors.
So I'm just going to kind of close the presentation and kind of the internship with a different perspective of what was going on this summer, kind of from the staff point of view. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Sarah Helding. I've been part of the land management staff here for the past 2 internship programs. And I have the unique opportunity to share my perspective because I've not only gotten to experience this internship through a staff perspective, but also as an intern back in 2017. This is my crew here. There was only 6 of us then. But yeah, as a staff, we can all agree that each year this internship gets more competitive and is evolving, and we just had an inflow of applications with other internships canceling, and we were lucky enough to continue our internship. So it was tough to narrow it down to just 6 applicants, so that's why we ended up with 9. So during our 9 weeks, we did a few different projects that I'm going to share with everyone that didn't get to experience it with us, that we were really lucky to have you guys help us with, because we come up with these projects during the off season. We're like, how are we going to do this? Back then it was just me and Kevin, like, how are we going to build this boardwalk all by ourselves? So we're very lucky to have you 9 to help out with us. So for those of you who don't know, we planted around 70 trees throughout our preserve. We loaded them, unloaded them, placed them out in our preserves. We planted a few of them and watered them throughout the summer. I thank you, my body thanks you, I'm sure Kevin thanks you for helping unload these trees, because as you guys can all attest to, these are not easy to move around. You can probably see Jenny's jaw drop here as she realizes that the tree is not going to end up where they want it to, because those are tough to move around after they lose their momentum. But yeah, we watered these trees, what was it, like every week and a half or so, and it was a good way to kind of break up the day after day, weed after weed pulling out there. And by the end of it, they were able to go out and water on their own. Some other projects, we had a lot of trail maintenance this summer that we had to do that included the West Skokie Boardwalk. If you haven't seen it out there, it kind of elevated a trail that was being flooded after a heavy rain. Kevin definitely thanks you guys for all your help on that.
Amen. Yeah.
And then we also did 3 other trails, all in Shaw Prairie, that was stoned and wood chipped with the help of these guys, and by the end of it they were actually able to stone the center trail all on their own, and it looks great. It was a trail that was kind of being flooded from rain, and they filled it with stone and leveled it out, and it looks great. Now we can all safely pass through there without getting too much mud on our boots. Also, the preserves are looking better than ever with these guys' help with pulling weed after weed. I think, what do we have? Valerian here and garlic mustard. Jess got to get featured in those. But yeah, not only were they constantly willing to pull all these weeds, they're also willing to hedge them and mow all the invasive species. That's why the preserves are looking so good. It's really refreshing from a staff perspective to have such willing participants in especially using machinery and being out there in the hot sun. I know from my experience it's not always fun to be out there in the beating heat running a machine as an intern, and we were always able to get volunteers from you guys, which was really refreshing. On top of all that, they were also stars on our social media this summer. You guys might have seen them helping us educate the public on different topics and kind of what we're doing here at Open Lands. So definitely check them out. You can see what we were doing this summer. We got some seed collection, obviously the tree planting and the weed pulling. So it's a nice break from Kevin and I on the Instagram telling them to come out to Derwent and check out what we've been doing. Lastly, we have our education days. We're a little different this year than they have in the past, from not being able to go to all of our planned locations and having speakers come in. They kind of had to deal with us trying to educate ourselves so we could educate them on these different prairies we were going to. We went to Chilwaukee Prairie, Illinois State Beach, and Daniel Wright Woods that we had to kind of self-guide. And then the Botanic Gardens, we didn't get to go do our behind-the-scenes tour. We did another self-guided tour, but these guys were always really engaged in learning, using their field guides and their magnifying glasses, and just journaling and journaling. We thought we were going to have to get everyone another journal with all you guys writing so much. But yeah, I would just like to say thank you from the staff. Kevin, Heather, and Pete and I have really enjoyed having you, and we're definitely going to miss having you guys around. It's going to be quiet around Lake Forest, but we're excited to see what you guys all do in the future, and hopefully you guys stay in touch.
And I believe last and sometimes least, I'm Kevin. I want to say to our sponsors and donors, as everybody else, thank you so much. This internship program, which is in its 23rd year, is such an integral part of the health of our preserves here. You know, we have a lot of volunteers that come out during the year, but during the growing season here in the summer, when people have other things going on and you know, it's hot out, and our volunteers are kind of go by the wayside, or at least in the droves. So interns coming out here and going after, you know, there's close to 100 weeds when we start, you know, really looking into all these species that we're trying to chase down, and control here, but for sure 30 that we've gotten just an incredible hand on here within that 23 years. And not only control and elimination of these invasives, but because we're making so much progress over the years, we're having a lot more time to go out and collect a lot of the native seeds that normally we never had time to do in the past. You know, white trilliums and baneberries and a whole slew of things that drop very early. As soon as they finish off, they drop and hit the ground, and if we don't get them, we can't really move them around. So being able to do that is just essential part of getting our diversity ramped up in these preserves and the full possibility for health that's out there. So I know we're all hungry, but yes, thank you all, interns. You guys were awesome this year. We were so lucky to have you guys. All of you individually and collectively have just been outstanding. So I wish you continued success, and hopefully you stay with this mission and cause in your years. Hopefully, you know, I think this becomes a lifetime thing when you really get into it. So anyhow, best of luck, and thank you all.
Kaylee, how do people find your videos?
So you can download the TikTok app. It's spelled TIKTOK, and my username is mother.treesa, like trees. So TREESA.
Thank you. And Matt, if you were to pick one tribe here in the Lake Forest area that was the most dominant, what would it be?
Yeah, so I mentioned them, the Niswi Mishikodwin, the Council of Three Fires, include the Anishinaabe, also known as the Potawatomi, which I know we have here at Open Lands during our big fundraiser. And it's also the Potawatomi Trails powwow is named after them. So I think that would be the biggest group.
I don't know if I have so much of a question or a comment, but wow, that was really impressive. I'm going to take my mask off so you can see who's talking to you. I'm going to break protocol here. First of all, you're all presenting to a group of people in a bunch of masks. That's hard. It was very impressive. But more impressive is all of you and your passion for what you're doing. Peter said it starting the day. He said that this is perhaps the most impactful program Lake Forest Open Lands does, and I agree with that. It's not just the work that you're doing on the land, but it's the fact that you're getting a passion for the land. Was it Matt? Are you Matt? So your presentation to begin with was outstanding as well. And I thought what was fascinating is your connection to Native Americans. Right now, that is something that is very much of a topic with the entire land trust community, especially in Illinois. We all understand that these lands were originally Native American lands, and we're starting to understand that connection we have to the land. Well, this summer you all received a new connection to the land, but what you received was something different. You probably and hopefully all have a spiritual connection to the land, and that's something very special you'll take with you the rest of your life. And that's what we're trying to understand in the land trust community, is how can we all re-engage that spiritual connection to the land. The pandemic, I think, if there's a silver lining to the pandemic, it's that we've all had this reconnection to the outdoors and to the land and understanding what it means. What you probably do not even realize the depth of how what you learned this year will carry with you. We're so fortunate to have you working with us, and I am so impressed by you as a group of young people. And when I see people like you up here doing what you're doing and talking how you're talking and thinking the way you're thinking, I have tremendous hope for conservation and for our planet. So thank you for all that. My question is, what's with the favorite condiment?
We were sitting around the lunch table on our first day and didn't have anything to talk about. And that was kind of the icebreaker, is what's your favorite condiment? And so we kind of tried to bring it full circle and tell you guys what our favorite condiments are.
That's great. Loved it. But you're wearing a favorite condiment on your shirt right there.
Oh, no, my favorite condiment's mustard.
Okay. Good. Thank you all for everything you did for us. We really appreciate it. And I also want to thank Peter, Kevin, Sarah, and Heather. What an outstanding job you did mentoring these young people. And so thank you all for